Today, the church celebrates the fourth Sunday of Lent, meaning we're more than halfway around the corner here to the great celebration of Easter. Often this day is referred to as Laetare Sunday. Laetare meaning rejoice. It sets up a sense of anticipation with the celebration of Easter just right around the corner, so close you can almost taste it. The colors are lighter in tone. If you go to some parishes, you might be wearing rose, but I think we both have an aversion to rose. Pink. We have flowers in the sanctuary area. And oftentimes we have instrumental music, more special instrumental music during this time, because it's a time for rejoicing, that even in the midst of a somber and penitential season of Lent, there is still room to rejoice. And there is that tension between that growing light and that receding darkness that we hear of today in our gospel. On this Laetare Sunday, we are called to reflect and give thanks for the graces God has given to us. The blind man in our gospel today lived his entire life blind. Never has he seen the light of day. And so being blind in the first century of Palestine meant that one was cut off from the rest of society. If a blind man desired to make a living, he would have to sit near the temple and beg. And this is where we find our blind man in the gospel today, outside the temple. But today will be an extraordinary day, as we heard, for this blind man because Jesus is passing by. The blind man receives Jesus as a pure gift. Really, no words are exchanged from them at the beginning of the gospel. Jesus simply notices the blind man and then begins to take dirt and his own spit, mixing it in and caking the eyes of the blind man. Without any fanfare, Jesus tells him to go wash in the pool of Siloam. For reference, the pool of Siloam in Jerusalem is a good 10-15 minute walk down a steep embankment. This blind man must make that journey, stumbling in the dark, listening to the jeers of the crowd, pointing at him, laughing at that man whose eyes were caked in mud. And after this healing, after he regained his vision, many didn't believe him. The neighbors doubted. The Pharisees held on to their stubbornness of heart rather than admit to what really did occur. Even his parents, once fear struck them, refused to answer any more questions in the hopes that they could protect their status in the Jewish community, leaving their son out to dry. This former blind man, despite his physical healing, actually finds himself abandoned even more than when he started. But it's in this final, intimate scene that we see Jesus seek him out, approach him. And in this final, intimate scene, we hear the blind man confess that Jesus is truly the Son of Man. Instead of allowing the despair, the resentment, the anger building up inside him, he hands it over to Jesus. He finds his strength and hope in Jesus Christ. Like the blind man, we too have been touched by Christ. We too have been washed in the pool of Siloam by our own baptism. We are offered the great gift of his grace and peace. And despite our own doubts, our stubbornness and fears, Christ is in front of us, ready for our embrace, ready to receive him as a gift. Like the blind man, too, we too face our own crosses and burdens. Neighbors and friends and family from time to time reject us for one thing or another. And at times, our faith may feel like we are outcast with no one to hear us. Our sense of purpose may vanish. But all that is a tactic of the darkness. You see, that is the work of the evil one lurking in the background, trying to instill that sense of doubt, trying to rev up that stubbornness, trying to make you most afraid when you need Jesus Christ the most. But here's the fascinating point that we often always seem to forget. That even in that darkness, even in that gloom, Christ's light glimmers, shining radiantly before us. We may not be able to see it clearly, but he's there, ready for us to turn to him and receive him as a gift. Every day, Christ is present, waiting to meet us face to face, wanting to be a gift to us. He gives himself freely as with his body and blood. And there's a reason when we go up to receive communion, we just don't take from the ciborium or the paten and consume ourselves. We stretch out our hands in confidence and faith that Christ's presence is placed into the palm of our hands. He gives his love and mercy, waiting for us in the sacraments of reconciliation. And then most importantly, he gives of himself in the presence of those around us. Each of us is called to live out a particular vocation. This vocation is a gift, not just to the one receiving it, but it's a gift to those around us. Whether that vocation is marriage, religious life, or consecrated single life, these vocations speak to Christ's presence in our world. Even today, after the noon Mass, Christ will be present upon this altar, giving of himself, even after we've received the Eucharist. We'll celebrate a holy hour for vocations in honor of Mundelein Centennial Anniversary celebration. It will be a great way to give him thanks for the gift of his grace and pray for a greater increase in vocations, particularly toward the priesthood and religious life. On this Laetare Sunday, let the brightness of this day, and it is bright out there, let this brightness of this day enlighten our hearts and illuminate our paths. For always and forever, Christ is at our side.
Thank you for joining us for the celebration of the Mass today. It's a blessing that you are with us. Every broadcast of this liturgy goes out to hundreds of people and hundreds of people all over the world. It's been an enormous blessing. If you'd like to support this virtual ministry of OLPH, please go to our website. You can support this ministry by going to Give Central so that we can continue to broadcast the liturgy each and every week. Thank you for your support. Most of all, thank you for joining us today. God bless you. Greetings from OLPH.